And welcome to another edition of Sports Talk. It's Saturday, November 26, 2022. I'm Daniel Blake. Thank you to everyone who is tuned in right now on the different platforms. If you are listening on your smart device on the Love 101 FM app, which you downloaded in the Google Play or Apple Store. If you're listening live on love101.org in your internet browser. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, hello. Or if you're listening the old-fashioned way on the radio 101.1 all the way to 101.9 on your FM band wherever you are in Jamaica, truly appreciate you joining me today. Remember that you can also listen to the show again or recommend it to a friend. In the app, you can go into the podcast section and say Saturday, and then Sports Talk will be right there if you missed anything or if you want to let somebody know what happened in the show. Or you can go on YouTube and Facebook, and I will always be there. So thank you again for everyone who constantly supports the show. It truly means a lot to me. And, hoping that you come back week in, week out. If this is your first week listening or watching, I truly appreciate your company today. What a week we've had in terms of World Cup football. We thought that Qatar may not produce some exciting football in terms of all of what was being talked about before with all the issues, players and the coaches complaining about the schedule, all of them things. But once the football got underway, it has been nothing but excitement. Apart from one or two of those nil-all draws, we've seen some very, very good football. Argentina fans, though, might disagree. Losing to Saudi Arabia 2-1 in their opening game. And that's why cliches like the ball is round or football is played on the day exists, because can you imagine over the last few weeks when we've been talking about the World Cup, and even last week when we previewed and we said Argentina, this might be their best chance to win the World Cup. And here comes Saudi Arabia, who no one gave a chance to even win a game in the group. We did say Mexico and Poland have a better chance than them to win a game, but Saudi Arabia absolutely stunned everybody. And unfortunately for the Argentina fans, they feel it the most. So Argentina, they play in less than an hour against Mexico, and they know that they essentially have to win this game. I can't afford to just say, all right, a point is good enough. Good luck to Argentina fans. Make sure you're having the medication and whatever on the need just in case una see another defeat. Germany fans, I hope una not laughing as well, because you guys got it bad as well. Losing 2-1 to Japan. Japan said, they're not taking us lightly, and you got the beating. So you go into Sunday's game against Spain, who smashed Costa Rica 7-0. No, now forgot try beat Spain, who looked absolutely imperious. And Germany fans are not forgot pray hard, because if you lose that game, you could be out of the group stage yet again after what you guys went through back in 2018. So you are going to need to say some heavy prayers tonight. Brazil fans, I know that you're happy after beating Serbia 2-0, Richarlison scoring twice, and that superb scissors kick, one of the goals of the tournament, if not the goal of the tournament so far. What a goal. A bit of a concern for Brazil, though, because Neymar reportedly has a sprained ankle after that Serbia game. If you saw the pictures being circulated on social media, you'd have seen Neymar's his ankle was was so swell, like it was swollen bad. So reports are that he'll miss the rest of the group stage games. Hopefully he will make it for the knockout stage games, because we do want to see the best players at all times, and Neymar is one of the best players in the world. Although Brazil, they have a lot of attacking talent, so they may not need him for the group stage, but definitely for the knockout stage, Neymar is definitely needed. So we will wait and see. So Argentina fans, Germany fans, I know sound sad, but hopefully they get to cheer up. Kingston College fans, me know say una not happy either. Defending champions of the Manning Cup, losing in that semi-finals, and might end up trophyless. Who knows? You guys play Clarendon College later in the Champions Cup, so hopefully it won't be a trophyless season for you. But congrats to St. Andrew Technical and Jamaica College. They will contest the Manning Cup final next week. And congrats to Central and Clarendon College on all Clarendon final for the Da Costa Cup. So I would be lying to you if I told you that, we're going to have a bag of previews and reviews or whatever, because I know that you guys are really focused on the World Cup. I know someone having the TV on right now. Grateful for those who have tuned in right now, because I know the World Cup might have an away, and someone who might take the 1 to 2 o'clock break where there's a bit of a gap for go do something and then go hurry up and reach back before the anthem then start playing. So what we're going to do today is we're just going to play 2 features that are very World Cup relevant, and hopefully that you will enjoy it. So we're going to go into a break, and when we come back, we'll play the first feature, which is about the World Cup curse. So stay tuned.
Mormac Auto Parts for all your Honda Ridgeline parts in Kingston. You may contact us at 876-821-5232 or 876-326-7371 or email us at mormacautoparts@gmail.com. Remember, we are your Honda Ridgeline parts dealer located in Kingston. Contact us now for more details at 876-821-5232 or 876-326-7371.
National serving the people of Jamaica with your favorite foods to help you stay strong. Grab your national bag, original, truly Jamaican. Something for all occasion, good for your breakfast, lunch or snack. Grab your national bag, original, truly Jamaican. Best quality, 70 years strong. National build up the nation. National Baking Company, baked with pride since 52.
International gospel music ministers Chandler Moore and Naomi Rain from Maverick City take the stage live at the National Stadium alongside Kevin Downswell, Carlene Davis, Rhoda Isabella, and Rondell Positive as Kingdom Culture presents the Well Encounter, the ultimate worship experience. National Stadium, Saturday, December 10. Early bird tickets at SpurOpen.com/TWE22. Follow on Instagram, the Well Encounter Experience. Sponsored by Purity, Sadcore, Love 101 FM, Grace, Pepsi.
Seniors, the Ministry of Labor and Social Security is advising that the November 2022 payment under the Social Pension Program is now available for collection. Check your text messages to confirm your payment arrangements. For further information, call 876-922-8007. The Social Pension Program, caring for our elderly. A message from the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, providing opportunity, stability, and social protection.
Movement's Dance Company of Jamaica is back, live at the Little Theatre, November 26 and 27. Get your tickets early and enjoy exciting Jamaican modern contemporary dance and positive vibes as Movement celebrates its 40th anniversary, dedicated to all those sadly lost in the COVID pandemic. Movements, reaching to the future.
Sports Talk here on Love 101, the family station. Now, France, they are looking to defend their title, but as we've seen over the last several editions of the World Cup. It's easier said than done. The last 3 World Cup winners before France in 2018, namely Italy, Spain, and Germany, have all gone out in the group stage of the FIFA World Cup, following in the footsteps of France in 2002 and Brazil in 1966. The repeated poor performances of the World Cup holders at the subsequent tournament has raised questions around whether that might be a World Cup champion's curse. So HITC 7 takes a look at the so-called World Cup winner's curse, the reason behind it, and what it means for France at this World Cup.
Only 8 countries have ever won the FIFA World Cup since the first finals were held in Uruguay in 1930, and those 8 tend to be the favourites going into every World Cup. This World Cup is no exception, where, despite 4-time winners Italy failing to qualify for a second successive World Cup, the other 7 are literally the 6 favourites to win it, plus Uruguay, who are the 11th favourites. And yet, the reigning champions, who you might think would be the most fancied and best equipped team to defend their crown, have an absolutely abysmal record at recent tournaments. Italy, who won the World Cup in 2006, were atrocious in 2010, finishing bottom of a group which was made up of themselves, Paraguay, Slovakia and New Zealand, and they have never really recovered. Dumped out in the group stage once again in Brazil in 2014, and failing to even qualify in 2018 and 2022. This, for a country that has won the World Cup 4 times, had only previously failed to qualify once, in 1958, and hadn't got out in the group stage since 1974, is a pretty extraordinary record. Likewise, Spain, who were by far the best team at the 2010 World Cup in South Africa, which they very deservedly won, a success that was sandwiched by consecutive European Championship successes, were abysmal just 4 years later in Brazil in 2014. Despite scoring first, Spain lost their World Cup opener 5-1 against the Netherlands, and a 2-0 defeat to Chile in their second game meant that they were eliminated before they had even played their final group fixture. And to make it 3 from 3, Germany, who beat Brazil 7-1 en route to winning the 2014 World Cup, also went out in the group stage 4 years later, in Russia in 2018, where they finished dead last in Group F, behind Sweden, Mexico, and South Korea. Germany are the most consistent team in the history of the FIFA World Cup. They have reached 8 finals, they've won 4 of them, and 2018 was their first round exit since 1938, before the World Cup even had a group stage, and when they lost in a round of 16 replay against Switzerland. If the Germans aren't safe as World Cup winners, then no one is, which has led to the theory that perhaps there is a curse on World Cup winners. After all, even before Italy in 2010, France suffered a shock exit in the group stage as reigning champions in 2002, Brazil went out in the group stage in 1966 despite having been champions in both 1958 and 1962, and Italy fell to a similar fate in 1950 following their consecutive successes in 1934 and 1938. Clearly, it's very difficult to win back-to-back World Cups. Only 2 teams have ever done it, and none in the last 60 years, namely Italy in 1934 and 1938, the first of which was extremely contentious, and Brazil in 1958 and 1962, with probably the single most talented group of players that any country has ever had at their disposal. The opposition at a World Cup is so formidable, the pressure is so extreme, and the margin for error is so fine that it's not surprising that no team has successfully defended their World Cup crown since the tournament has been broadcast in colour. But that doesn't explain the shocks, group stage exits, and total capitulations. To identify the patterns behind these failures, it is worth taking a slightly closer look at each of them on their own merit, starting with France in 2002, which is often cited as being when the so-called curse began. France were the best team in world football at the turn of the millennium, not just the best in the international game, but the strongest club or national team side, and they are arguably the last national team that you could make that claim about. In 1998, France won their first World Cup on home soil, as an enormous wellspring of talent just seemed to emerge at the perfect time. France had one of the youngest squads at the tournament, as youngsters like Patrick Vieira, Thierry Henry and David Trezeguet brought a youthful zeal to their squad. Meanwhile, a back four of Thauvin Blanc, Desailly and Lizarazu is among the most formidable in the entire history of the sport. They had a sprinkling of experience thanks to both Blanc and their captain Didier Deschamps, and an all-time great in the form of Zinedine Zidane acting as their talisman. France not only won the World Cup, they conceded just 2 goals all tournament, cruising to a 3-0 win against Brazil in the final, following Ronaldo's infamous seizure on the morning of the game. 2 years later, in Belgium and the Netherlands, if anything, France had an even stronger team at Euro 2000. The back four was still intact and unchanged, and by this stage, the likes of Vieira, Henry and Trezeguet were bona fide world-class players, and Zizou was at the absolute peak of his powers. It is no surprise then that France became the first country in history to win the World Cup and the Euros back-to-back, and going into the 2002 World Cup, France were the joint favourites along with Argentina to make it 3 from 3 in South Korea and Japan. It seemed to be a reasonable assessment. Not only had France won the last Euros and World Cup, they also won the Confederations Cup in 2001, topping their group before beating Brazil and Japan in the semis and the final, and the core of their squad remained unchanged. Blanc was gone, replaced by Frank Leboeuf, who had started for France in the final in 1998 anyway due to Blanc's suspension. Meanwhile, Vieira, Henry and Trezeguet were playing even better at club level than they had been going into Euro 2000. In their final warm-up game against South Korea though, just 5 days before their opening game, Zinedine Zidane hobbled off at half-time. It was the worst possible start to the World Cup for France, losing their star man, as it was confirmed that Zizou would miss at least the first 2 games. France's opening game, which was the opening game of the 2002 World Cup, was also arguably the worst possible game for them, up against a fast, frantic, and extremely motivated Senegal team, competing in their first ever FIFA World Cup. All but 3 members of Senegal's 23-man squad played their club football in France. France's backline might have been largely unchanged in terms of personnel, but they certainly looked very different in terms of their athleticism. All 4 were over the age of 30, Leboeuf and Desailly at centre-back, aged 33 and 34, and they were run ragged by a 21-year-old El Hadji Diouf and a 23-year-old Nusa Ndai. Henry and Vieira, who brought so much strength, speed and intent to Arsenal, looked dead on their feet in Seoul. Vieira described himself as having been cooked in South Korea, having played virtually every game, along with Henry, in Arsenal's double-winning campaign. France lost the game 1-0, and a red card for Thierry Henry, only 25 minutes into their second group game against Uruguay, meant that they had to settle for a draw. In France's final group game against Denmark, in which anything other than a win would see them eliminated, Zidane returned. But clearly, he wasn't at 100%, or even 75%, and France were well beaten by the Scandinavians. It was a cocktail of an ageing squad, an injury to their star man, and chronic fatigue for some of their next best players, and a moment of madness resulting in a red card that ultimately proved to be lethal for France's World Cup hopes. This was not a bad group of players all of a sudden. Even some of France's old guard still went on to win their group at Euro 2004 and to reach the final of the 2006 World Cup. But a series of unfortunate events saw them finish bottom of what many had described pre-tournament as being an easy group. Brazil won the 2002 World Cup, and they are the last country to have won the World Cup and not gone out in the group stage at the following tournament. The World Cup curse, therefore, could be deemed as being a solely European phenomenon, though that might just be because European teams have won 5 out of the last 6 World Cups. I still think that it is worth taking a little look at Brazil, who went into the 2006 World Cup as the tournament favourites, and though they did manage to navigate a very easy group before beating Ghana in the round of 16, the first time that they came up against formidable opposition, in the form of 2002 flops France, they lost 1-0 in a game that was dominated by Zinedine Zidane. Brazil had a dizzying array of talent going into the 2006 World Cup, with the likes of Cafu, Roberto Carlos, Kaká, Ronaldinho, Ronaldo and Robinho. But as with France in 2002, several of those star players were nearing the end of their careers. Cafu was 36, Carlos was 33, and though Ronaldo was only 29, injuries had taken their toll, and he was on the verge of leaving Real Madrid, a pale shadow of the man who lit up the 1998 and 2002 World Cups. Italy enjoyed a polar opposite experience to Brazil at the 2006 World Cup, which they went into being largely unfancied, written off as a country in crisis following the Calciopoli scandal. What those who wrote Italy off for issues away from the pitch failed to realise was that they had a squad laced with quality. Some dubious officiating had seen them dumped out by the host South Korea in the round of 16 in 2002, but Buffon, Cannavaro, Pirlo and Totti formed an almost peerless spine, and Italy, like France in 1998, conceded just 2 goals all tournament. 4 years later in South Africa though, Cannavaro was still captaining Italy, now aged 36, Pirlo was 31, and Totti had retired. Nonetheless, Italy were gifted not just with the easiest group at that World Cup, but one of the weakest of all time, pitted alongside Paraguay, Slovakia, and New Zealand. Not only did they fail to win a single game, Italy conceded 5 goals in 3 games, having conceded just 2 goals in 7 games in 2006, and they finished bottom of that group. Italy were turgid, lethargic, and offered no real attacking intent in South Africa, in what is probably the worst ever showing by a reigning world champion, and it was described as the nation's biggest sporting disaster at the time. Little did they know that they wouldn't even qualify in 2018 or 2022. Whilst France and Italy's group stage exits were both shocking, the one that took me most by surprise was Spain in 2014. Spain went into that tournament off the back of 3 successive major tournament crowns, an unprecedented era of success for any European national team. And though Barcelona's 2013 and 2014 Champions League exits suggested that perhaps theirs and Spain's era of dominance was coming to an end, that tiki-taka might have been starting to generate diminishing returns, and that the Gegenpressing Germans might just have started to leapfrog them, they were still a team that everyone wanted to avoid. Ramos, Piqué and Alba were all still at the peak of their powers at the back, as was Sergio Busquets just in front of them, though Andres Iniesta was 30 and Xavi was 34. Meanwhile, Fernando Torres had suffered a steep slump in form ever since that move to Chelsea, and there was just a sense that Diego Costa, naturalised as a Spaniard following his years with Atletico Madrid, didn't quite fit their silky possession-based system. And so it proved. Spain's game from 2008 onwards was so dependent upon suffocating the opposition by not relinquishing possession of the ball, but the Netherlands battered them on the counter-attack. They were too quick and too direct for a startled Spanish team, and that set the tone for Chile to take the game to them, once again following that 5-1 defeat. It was a similar story with the Germans. They weren't the favourites going into the 2018 World Cup, but almost everyone expected them to progress from a group made up of Sweden, Mexico and South Korea. After losing 1-0 to an energetic Mexico team that ran them ragged and held firm in their opening game, even a 95th minute winner against Sweden didn't resurrect Germany's tournament, and a 2-0 defeat courtesy of 2 more injury time goals against South Korea served as the final nail in their coffin. What almost all of these group stage departures have in common, with the possible exception of Germany in 2018, is that the World Cup winners allowed their squads to grow stale in the 4 years between winning the tournament and defending their crown. There seems to be an understandable loyalty that managers have towards the players who won them the World Cup, for obvious reasons, but which results in them being reluctant or simply unable to bring fresh blood and inject some youth and energy into their squads. Apart from anything else, not only is everyone 4 years older, which means that players who were perhaps at their peak when you won the World Cup no longer are. I'm thinking perhaps of Cannavaro in 2006 to 2010, or Jerome Boateng from 2014 to 2018. Inevitably, some key players also retire, at least from international football, between the two tournaments. Germany went from winning the World Cup in 2014 to finishing bottom of their group in 2018, but in the space of those 4 years, they lost their captain Philipp Lahm, who was practically faultless in Brazil, their midfield talisman Bastian Schweinsteiger, who had been integral to them for the past decade, and the World Cup's all-time leading goalscorer in the form of Miroslav Klose. That isn't quite the spine of their 2014 World Cup winning team, because Lahm played at fullback, but it is certainly three of their most important players, both in terms of their talent and performances, but also their leadership and presence within the dressing room. It is a similar story with Spain, who had lost Carlos Puyol by 2014, Italy, who were without Francesco Totti by 2010, and France, who had lost their captain from their 1998 World Cup and Euro 2000 successes, Didier Deschamps, by the time that the 2002 World Cup came around. In the case of France in 2002, I think that it is telling that, at the time, the World Cup winners had no qualification process, since they qualified for the next World Cup automatically. That meant that France had no competitive fixtures, with the exception of the Confederations Cup, which is basically a friendly tournament regardless, between the final of Euro 2000 and the opening game of the 2002 World Cup. It is notable that Roger Lamar, the France boss, had taken those 2 years as an opportunity to experiment with how his team played in a series of uncompetitive matches. And by the time the World Cup came around, and they faced a Senegal team who, in the words of Neil Warnock, would have been willing to die to get 3 points, they looked disjointed, outfought, and outrun. The reigning champions have had to qualify since 2006, but since qualifying can be so easy for European nations, if they aren't matched with at least one really strong side in their qualifying group, it is eminently possible for a rustiness and a complacency to still set in over those 2 years. Perhaps that is one of the reasons why South Americans, albeit it is a much smaller sample size, haven't been affected by the World Cup winners' curse to quite the same extent, since they are constantly going toe-to-toe with the best teams on their continent in meaningful matches. Of course, there is also an element of, in winning the World Cup, you become the team to beat, and there is an enormous amount of pressure on you. A World Cup group stage, we also ought not forget, is just 3 games. It's not like a league season or even a Champions League group stage, increasing the odds of an upset and tightening the margin of error. It takes only 2 off days, a moment of madness or a couple of silly errors, and anyone can be dumped out of a World Cup, no matter how good you are or what you achieved 4 years ago. If it wasn't for Thierry Henry's red card after 25 minutes in France's second group game against Uruguay in 2002, they would most likely to have gone on to win that game, relieving a lot of the pressure ahead of their final group game against Denmark, and who knows, maybe then they wouldn't have risked Zidane and they might have even progressed. Spain conceded 5 goals in the space of just 20 minutes against the Netherlands, in a freakish period which destroyed their cloak of invincibility and almost all of their confidence with it in 2014. Suddenly, they were beatable, and I have no doubt that changed the way in which Chile approached that second group game against them. The tournament opener is so important for every team, and the World Cup winners are no exception. It is no surprise to me that all 4 of France in 2002, Italy in 2010, Spain in 2014, and Germany in 2018 all suffered shock results and shock defeats in 3 of those instances in their opening games.
Thank you to HITC Sevens for that feature. We're hoping, well, me personally, hoping that France breaks the curse, because can't bother cry this year. We go into our final break, and when we come back, another World Cup feature for you, so stay tuned.
It's the 10,000 Men and Families Movement March, historic night of hope for Portmore. End violence, build peace. Sunday, November 27, with marches beginning at 4:30 p.m., moving from the Hart Academy and the Edgewater Roundabout and gathering at the Climate Change Park in front of the Power of Faith Church. Love 101 will be on location at 5 p.m. to bring you the highlights. Join Dr. Carla Marshall, Reverend Denzel Jack, Dr. Orlando Wright, Pastor Paul Mason, Reverend Robert Campbell, and Speaker Bishop Rowan Edwards. Music ministry from O'Shane Mays and psalmist Carrie Sales. It's the 10,000 Men and Families March, historic night of hope for Portmore. Sunday, November 27, with marches beginning at 4:30 p.m. The live broadcast on Love 101 will begin at 5 p.m. It's presented in association with the Spanish Town, Portmore, Old Harbor, Guys Hill, and Linstead Ministers Fraternals and citizen associations across St. Catherine. The night of hope to end violence and build peace.
Protect it from all evil forces, the strongholds of principalities and powers.
What would I do without you? You help me carry on, you help me stay strong. Whenever I'm down and can get through, you lift me up again and going all day long. Precious moments we share with you, everything's so right. It's clear, nothing else can compare to the taste that you bring to life. Mom's full of life.
Black Friday Mega Madness. Black Friday Mega Madness. We have never had a sale this big. Get ready, Jamaica. This one is massive. November 25 to 27 at Home and Things. It's the Black Friday Mega Madness weekend at Home and Things. Every single item in store is 30 to 70% off. This Friday only. And catch the Saturday and Sunday specials too. Black Friday Mega Madness weekend is on at Home and Things, Old Hope Road and Constant Spring Road. It's a Mega Madness weekend.
Hey my peeps, get this on the regular. Your HIV status if you consider. At least if you test once a year. Just 15 minutes and your status clear. Cause it might not show up on your timeline and you learn too late so you're out of time. A progressive future, mandatory. Really long life, our story. You hear?
Remember, update your status in a real life. Go HIV test today.
Just 15 minutes and your status clear. Really long life, our story. Real long life for youth coming from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
International gospel music ministers Chandler Moore and Naomi Rain from Maverick City take the stage live at the National Stadium alongside Kevin Downswell, Carleen Davis, Rhoda Isabella, and Rondell Positive as Kingdom Culture presents the Well Encounter, the ultimate worship experience. National Stadium, Saturday, December 10. Early bird tickets at spur.open.com/TWE22. Follow on Instagram, the Well Encounter Experience. Sponsored by Purity, Sadcore, Love 101 FM, Grace, Pepsi.
Come back to Sports Talk here on Love 101 with the World Cup being our focus. So as you guys have been seeing, a lot of countries at the World Cup are using players that weren't necessarily born in that country. So we see a lot of the African countries using players from the UK or maybe even France or those type of things due to mixed nationalities. So in the past couple of years, FIFA eased its rule on allowing players with mixed heritage the opportunity to represent a country, even if you've previously played on the international stage for a different one. But what goes into the tough decision of deciding who to represent, and how persuasive can some countries be? So the BBC explored the increasingly common issues of players having to decide who they really represent and why.
When it comes to what makes players eligible to represent a national team, FIFA, World Football's governing body, has three criteria. They can represent if they were born in the country, if a parent or grandparent is from the country, or if they've been resident in the country for a certain number of years. Since 2020, additional rules have allowed players to switch national teams as long as they didn't play more than 3 matches for their first nation before the age of 21 and none in a major competition. But once you cross that white line at the World Cup, that's it. No going back. Time for training and the drills and repetitions hated by most players, but which might make the difference in the end. But before arriving in Qatar, many players and some coaches will have had to double check just to make sure they were taking the right passport. Ghana's coaching staff, for example, are mainly Ghanaians with dual heritage. Assistant coach George Boateng was born in Ghana but played for the Netherlands, whilst Otto Addo was born, raised and played his entire club career in Germany but represented Ghana. He's now the head coach and knows all about the complexities of deciding which country should I play for.
I can understand it's a difficult decision, especially if you were born in another country and you're young and you have the choice to play for either this nations or that. This is not a decision like on club stage where you can sign maybe for 1, 2, 3 years, and then after that, if things doesn't work, you can go to another club. It's a lifetime decision, so it's very, very difficult. Me being born in Germany, maybe I can even understand more of that thinking, but surely we want those who decided to play for Ghana to get familiar with the teams, with the staff. And so everybody who wants to join has to join now, and they know exactly what they're going to do.
Are you worried that people will think these players just want a chance to play in the World Cup? Have you asked them, have you made it clear to them that after the World Cup, they'll still be expected to play in far-flung corners where it takes 2 days to travel for an AFCON qualifier and that sort of thing?
Like I said, this is why they really have to think what to do, especially if you're not born in this environment. It's not always easy. But they know what they get. And first of all, it's a lot of joy. It's a lot of love. And surely also for them, it's not only about the World Cup. It's about more World Cups to come. It's about African Cup of Nations. It's about winning. It's about being successful. So it's not about just one World Cup.
A coaching setup that understands the difficulties of the issue can explain its pros and cons. But creating and cementing a bond between a dual heritage player and the country they now represent is also important.
I was sure that I wanted to play for Ghana. There was no doubt. I've been going to Ghana every holidays, every vacation. My mother sent me and my sister to Ghana. We stayed there 5-6 weeks, so I have already very, very much contact with the culture, with the people. I still have friends, a lot of friends there, family.
You were born in Germany, you grew up there. So what is your personal identity? I mean, do you feel Ghanaian mainly? Do you feel African or not?
There's a good word, actually. It's Afro-German. Yeah, I'm happy with that because this is exactly how I feel. It's very important for everybody to know that people, they don't have to decide to feel like this or that. You know, you have everything in you, and this is what you are and how you are.
Iñaki Williams is in Qatar as part of the Ghana squad. The Athletic Bilbao forward was born and raised in Spain, even winning a cap for the Spanish national team. But in July, he switched to play for Ghana.
It wasn't an easy decision for me to make. I had to consult my family, my loved ones. It's a decision taken with my heart. My grandfather was the one who helped me make that decision. My grandfather told me that it'd be a dream for him to see me in the national team jersey. He's 90 years old, and he told me that he doesn't have long to live, but what he has left, he would like to see me play in a World Cup with the national team. And when he told me those words, I didn't have to think anymore. It's a decision that I've taken with my heart, regardless of what people may think of me, that I'm only playing for Ghana because they've qualified for the World Cup. I have no regrets whatsoever about the decision, and I hope to give my best to make people proud of what I do on the pitch.
Even within families, siblings can feel very differently about identity and which country they should play for. William's brother Nico was also born and raised in Spain, and he also plays for Athletic Bilbao. But in Qatar, he'll play for Spain. Former Premier League defender Sébastien Bassong was a product of the famous Clairefontaine Academy outside Paris that has produced many of France's greatest players of the last 30 years, and he played for France's under-21s team.
I grew up in Paris, born and raised in Paris, proudly.
But when it came to deciding whom to represent at the senior level, he chose Cameroon, and like Iñaki Williams, the influences that shaped his decision were there long before his football career began.
My dad is from Cameroon, you know. If you got to know something about Cameroonians are very strict to the rules, and my dad wasn't an exception, especially by being a teacher. In his mind, it was only school that matters. He said, Seb, when we came to France, there was only so much that we knew. We were scared that we didn't want you guys to be outcast. We didn't want you to not have all the chances to be successful. So we wanted to fit. We wanted to fit in. Don't make no wave. We don't want to be sent back. So they don't play. They're strict. Whenever my mom and dad was wrong, they were right. They were right. And they want to embed in you some value that is so proud of our heritage, is so proud of the green, yellow, and red Cameroon. That's him, that's us. You know me as Sébastien Bassong, but my full name is Sébastien Bassong Ngena. And my dad, even when I was writing on my homework, he said, write the whole name. And I couldn't be bothered. It was so long. My teacher couldn't even pronounce the name. My daughters, they do the same now. That makes me laugh. So I was like, nah. But he said, no, you don't know because Ngena is the real family name. The language in my house was French, and Bassa is our dialect in Cameroon. But my parents didn't want to teach us Bassa because they were scared that we weren't going to be able to speak good French. So they were talking to each other, or with all the adults were talking the dialect, but they were talking to us in French. The cooking, yeah, my mom, I think I never ate vegetables when I was young. I never ate any greens. This is how the dishes are made. It's oil plus something else. And that's the scenario of my household. My household was Douala, Cameroon in the house, and Paris, France outside the house.
That dual influence meant that Bassong felt a strong connection to both France and Cameroon, making the choice of whom to play for even harder.
Without France, without all the French system, I wouldn't have been the man that I am today. I wouldn't have had the career that I had. So when I got called, I remember I was in Clairefontaine. So this is an achievement. You wearing the French national team shirt, and people were so proud. They were happy. I was happy. For me, there was a no-brainer. My paper was French. This is the next right thing. But I never thought about, who am I going to play for? It hadn't been brought to me that said, you might have a choice. It got brought up to me when Cameroon started calling my dad. He must have slipped out of my dad's mouth at some point. And then I was like, what is that? The requirement that you need to play, to represent a country, is beyond your football skills and abilities. It's more about your heart. It's more about your mindset. That's something that's not tangible, that you got to put in to really be able to perform. That's why when I had the choice to make, it wasn't a choice by default. I joined Cameroon when I was 19. And I had a call from the French first team. We'd like to take you on board. And I was at the age where I had to make a decision. I went to see my dad. And then he said, listen, I can't tell you what to do. You got to make your choice. He said, listen, let me give you a hint. Listen to both the national anthems. Go with the one who gives you goosebumps. That'll be your sign that that's the one you vow. That's not something somebody can tell you. This is what you got to tell you. Because he said to me, if I tell you something, you might listen to what I'm saying, but that's me talking. I'm not you. So I did that. And obviously I was like, oh, au Cameroun, berceau de nos ancêtres. So, and I said, okay, I made my mind. My dad said something to me when I told him my choice. He said, now let me tell you, I'm so happy about your choice. He said, yeah, I'm happy about your choice. If you would have chosen the other way, cool. But now I can tell you that I'm happy. He said, there's one thing. When you play for your country, when you play for Cameroon, for an African team, you will never be forgotten in Africa. Never, ever. As soon as you wore that shirt, regardless if you're retired, your privileges stay the same because you served your country. And I've experienced that. It's about your heart. It's what you want to serve your country.
Deciding whom to represent can have far-reaching consequences well beyond the personal.
My father was born in Pakistan, came over when he was a child. My mum was born here, so having that dual nationality then, I can obviously play for Pakistan and then playing for England as well.
Nadia Khan was born in Leeds in northern England 21 years ago. She plays for the Doncaster Rovers Bells in the English Second Division. She recently chose to represent Pakistan. It's a choice based on a realistic assessment of her chances of playing for England, but also an understanding that it may have a wider positive impact.
From my heart, honestly, I did want to play for England. That was obviously a dream, especially living in the UK. But obviously, them opportunities are very rare. My opportunity came first with Pakistan, so I wasn't just going to sit back and say, no, I'll knock that back and wait for England, because I don't know whether that chance would come. So I think Pakistan was a good choice, and I think the best choice, for me, because I'm helping now to inspire other girls. I saw how others struggle and how I have, the opportunities that I have playing football in this country. A lot of people don't have that opportunity, even just to play football. They have to obviously overcome different obstacles in their lives. And I think just me doing something unselfish and just obviously following my dreams still, but doing it in a different way to help obviously others. I think that was a better opportunity for me. And yeah, on a personal level, it would make me feel a lot more empowering to know that I've actually helped others, especially in Pakistan as well. There's a lack of support from, I think, quite a few families to push their girls into sports or football. Me joining Pakistan football team and helping to get rid of some of them barriers, it's actually good to put your girls in football and to play different sports, because it helps them on a personal level. It helps them to grow as a person, and they become more confident and out there in the world, and gaining more attention to the game of football in Pakistan is helping in a more of a broader field, because there's a lot of fans out there that are texting me, messaging me and tweeting. But no, it's an amazing feeling to have.
A FIFA suspension prevented the Pakistan women's team from playing any matches for 8 years. When the suspension was lifted earlier this year, Nadia made her debut at the South Asian Cup, where she and the team both made their marks.
My father obviously was very, very proud that I got the call up and was persuading me obviously to play. And I was like, obviously I've been making my own decisions and thinking about it myself, but the smile that I saw on his face, and it was like, yeah, that's another point to put with joining the team. But honestly, he was watching all my matches, very supportive after the games, and he was jumping around the living room when I was scoring goals.
Nadia उनीबाट फेरि पनि बल स्टिल गर्दै अगाडि बढेको छिन्, बक्समा प्रवेश. Nadia इजी फिनिस हुनेछ उनको र तेस्रो गोल पाकिस्तानको लागि. Nadia Khan finally on the score sheet.
Before going into the game, I was like, I need to score a goal. I have to score a goal. I was like FaceTiming my mum before. She said, Nadia, are you going to score this game? I was like, I'll try, mum. I'll try my best. So scoring 4 goals was... I didn't even know what to do. How do you score 4 goals in international level? You tell me. How? I don't know.
Nadia Khan, wonderful footwork. After hat-trick तर्फ अगाडि बढ्दै Nadia Khan! That is your hat-trick.
And that is your star player from Doncaster Rovers.
When I scored my first goal, the manager was like, Nadia, you're going to give me another? And I jokingly said, no, I'll give you 4 goals. I scored the 4 goals and he was looking at me like, what have you just done? What have you just done, Nadia?
Nadia, easy finishing ko. Wonderful skill, wonderful mentality. Nadia Khan, what a player she is. Hats up.
Nadia Khan, back to back to back to back.
It was such a celebration at the end, and it was so nice because imagine going home. It was like a 28-hour flight as well, because it's not a direct flight. And imagine that journey back on a loss. On a high note, it felt like a 2-hour flight.
Nadia's dream of playing international football has been realised thanks to Pakistan's readmission by FIFA. If she wore the England jersey, a criticism that the team lacks diversity might have been soothed. But the visibility of her international career means that she's become a role model for women in both countries.
Occasionally I would think about if I would to play for England and how would the community perceive me, because it would inspire a lot of people to play football and they'd be like more of a role model to say that you can achieve. But I guess I'm doing that the same playing for Pakistan because it's still at an international level. Just being in contact with a few young girls who are going for trials and they have my ethnicity and they're like, can you come down and support us? I was like, of course, I would love to come down and support you. Be that familiar face that you can actually compare yourself to.
In a small village a couple of hours north of Chile's capital Santiago, Alvaro Perez plays the video game Football Manager. As the name suggests, the game lets you be the boss, set up the tactics, negotiate contracts and scout for unearthed diamonds. The game's updated every year by an army of researchers to make sure it's as realistic as possible, and Alvaro noticed an English player whom the game now said was also Chilean.
Now Brayton Diaz into the area, big chance for Rovers, and he slammed it in! It's Ben Brayton Diaz! He stepped up when they needed him most!
That's Ben Brereton knocking them in for Blackburn Rovers. He was previously part of England's successful under-19 squad that won the European Championship, but like Nadia Khan, has limited chances of being called up for the senior team. Back in Chile, Alvaro started a social media campaign, #Brereton a la Roja, Brereton to the Reds, the nickname of the Chile national team. It went viral, the coach noticed, and in June 2021, Ben Brereton, born in England to a Chilean mother who'd only visited Chile once as a baby, became Ben Brereton Diaz as he stepped up to represent Chile in the fiercely contested and highly prestigious South American Championship, the Copa America.
Personally, it was a no-brainer because Chile is a massive country. It's an honour to represent my mum's side, and the players that are there the level is just unbelievable. So it was a no-brainer for me. It's a massive volume. Every time I put on that shirt, it's just unbelievable. And, you know, putting a smile on my mum's face, she absolutely loves Chile. My nan's face and my granddad's face, because my mum, my granddad and my nan live over in England with my mum's sisters. To put a smile on their face is just the most amazing thing. And obviously when I go over there, I've seen the family over there a few times. They were really happy, you know, with the shirts on and stuff like that. And they've all come to games. And so that was great. And my mum came over to Chile not long ago and watched the first game as well. So she was just crying the national anthem and doing what mums do. So she was really happy. And I just love putting a smile on her face. And that's what makes her happy. So it's great.
Ah yes, the national anthem, an emotional moment, but a challenge if you don't speak the language. So Brereton has had to work to create those bonds of identity.
The English national anthem, I've always sang that. When I first went over to Chile, because I don't know the language, it was hard to understand the words fully. So I've not yet sang the national anthem for Chile, but it's something that I'm looking to do in the future when I get all the words right, all the stuff right. But when we go over there, I stand there, I look straight forward, you know, because they always look at the Chilean flag, so I always look at the Chilean flag and they're all singing. But hopefully in a year's time I can sing that song, yeah.
And then there's the reaction of the rest of the squad, and of course the fans. Thankfully for Brereton, both took to him. Fans even made a song for him, which was much more tuneful than his karaoke.
It's gonna be the day that we're gonna throw it back to you.
That was his contribution to his initiation, which is the traditional icebreaker, usually full of cringe, that newcomers to football dressing rooms all over the world must perform.
I was a bit nervous, obviously, and it was just how the nation would take me. You know, me being half English, half Chilean, played for England. You know, if they liked that or not. But listen, as soon as I got there and played a game, the whole team, the whole country, the fans were all behind me, you know, and it's the amount of fans you get for the players and the amount of love they show. No, it's unbelievable.
Let's go, Robert.
My mum was the one that was the most nervous about it, to be honest with you, because she obviously from Chile. But as soon as I got there, the players towards me were unbelievable. You know, they made me feel like it was home. You know, they took me under their arms, and as soon as I got there was no worries of me thinking, "Oh, why did I do this?" You know, it was wow, what a decision I've made to come play for Chile. You know, and I love it.
Ben Franci, okay? Yeah! It's gonna be the day that we're gonna throw it back to you.
Yeah, that was in the Copa America when you have to the initiation song. So yeah, but I've still got a lot of work to do involving my Spanish. You know, I do lessons here and there every week, but it's tough. You know, I wish I learned from a young age, but when I was younger, my mum was trying to learn English, so it was kind of hard for her to teach me the language. You know, so now I'm trying hard to learn the language, and hopefully soon I can go over there and do a few interviews in Spanish.
Ben Brereton Diaz, a much better footballer than singer, and being made to feel at home. Feeling part of the squad is essential for harmony on the pitch, but for Ghana's Spanish-born forward Iñaki Williams, it was also a profound experience.
Sí, hay una diferencia muy...
Yes, there is a very, very big difference, especially in the locker room in those first few days, looking into the eyes of my teammates and seeing myself reflected in them. Most of them are playing in Europe, but to get to Europe, they've had to take difficult roads. So the feeling I get when I look at them is they've gone through the same or something similar, that their families emigrated from Ghana to Europe so that their children, who are my teammates, went through the same thing as me. So it's like we're all fighting for the same thing on the same path.
En un mismo camino.
Nonetheless, there's still a risk that bringing in someone who might be considered to be an outsider disturbs the harmony of the squad.
There are times when it may seem a little unfair, but in the end, it's part of football. I didn't make this decision to go. The opportunity was presented to me by Ghana. It's the coach who is the one who decides that. It's a pity that we can't all go, but all I want to do is my best and to make people feel proud that although I wasn't born in Ghana, my blood and my family is from there.
Mi sangre y mi familia es de allí.
So what advice is there for those who still have to make the agonising decision of who to play for? Here's Sebastian Bassong again, who chose Cameroon after playing for France's under-21s team.
I would say, who are you? Because France, Cameroon, they're still outside element. But the central element is you. Who are you? What do you like? What do you want? What do you need? What kind of player, what kind of human being you are? And then when you reverse engineer, you're starting from you, not what's coming from the outside. It's not a matter of who am I, where am I born. It's deeper than that. I got a different love for the two countries. I can't split myself in two. I have been blessed to be able to grow up in France and represent my country in Cameroon. What would I have to choose? They're both bringing me something who makes me who I am today. And I am Cameroonian. Of course, I got French paper where people say, oh, but whenever you want to be French, I said, yeah, I have this right. What's wrong with that? What is wrong with that? Well, it's not because you can't do something that you should make me feel bad about what I can do. It's not because you got limited belief that it's going to become my reality. That's on you. Obviously, if there's a France-Cameroon football game, all the way Cameroon. But when France won the World Cup, I was happy for them. Why not?
It's a decision made by some in the heart and others by the head. But in the end, deciding which country to play for can lead to huge emotional riches, like playing in the World Cup, and for the deserving, the eternal adulation of an entire nation.
That was the BBC feature on mixed nationalities, players who weren't necessarily born in that country representing another country. So a very interesting feature there. Argentina and Mexico kicks off very shortly. Hope that you're around your TV, radio, smart device, whatever it is, and hope that you enjoy it. And hopefully we'll get to talk about all the group stage action next week and everything that's to come regarding the World Cup. Please enjoy it. Please stay safe and enjoy your weekend as well in general, whether you're watching the World Cup or not. I'm Daniel Blake. Please remember to watch and listen to Sports Talk every Saturday from 1 to 2 p.m. right here on Love 101, the family station.